Stillness is never truly empty. Within it, there is a language. In our world, we are accustomed to seeing connection as a visible flow, the words, the calls, the constant currents of reassurance. When this flow ceases and a quiet space emerges, especially with someone whose presence we cherish, our immediate instinct is to fear an ending. We see a void, we feel a personal failing, we perceive only absence. What we may not yet understand is that this stillness is also a form of expression. It may not be the one our hearts long for, but it is an expression nonetheless. Consider this. When someone is truly committed to walking a path with you, they find ways to remain present. No matter how difficult the terrain, they will seek clarity, build bridges, and find resolution. So when a person recedes into quiet, it doesn't mean there is nothing to convey. It often suggests a current too turbulent to articulate, and they have chosen not to try. This choice is itself the communication. The quiet is not always born from a place of malice. It can be a fog of confusion. It can be a lack of inner maturity. It can be an attempt to sidestep a challenge. Yet, regardless of its source, the quiet reveals something profound. How an individual meets discomfort, how they navigate inner storms, how able they are to lean into life's friction, and ultimately, how much they honor you, your path, and your need for peace. The most challenging discipline is to allow that space to simply be, without filling it with stories, without chasing for explanations, without letting another's quiet diminish your own inner light. When you can do this, when you can resist the pull to find reasons for another's lack of presence, you begin to perceive the truth held within the quiet. You come to realize that people who walk with genuine care do not leave you wandering in mist. They do not hand you fragments and ask you to piece together their meaning. They do not leave your spirit in a state of suspense. So the next time a quiet space opens up, you might gently ask yourself, what is this stillness truly communicating? Is it saying, my inner world is in turmoil, but I will return when the waters calm? Or does it convey, I do not hold this connection with enough reverence to communicate through the storm? Is this a meaningful pause, or is it a silent departure? Your own life force is far too precious to be poured into a space that someone refuses to tend to when clarity is needed. And here we find an insight many find difficult to embrace. Quiet is a choice. It is a choice to not engage, to not clarify, to not be present. If another stillness leaves you feeling unmoored, unsettled, or questioning your own being, you must recognize this is not a garden where you should struggle to grow. You are not meant to argue with a lack of presence. You are not meant to persuade another to communicate, to be near, to offer stillness with warmth. You can trust that something more aligned will find you. Stillness should be a shared space, not an empty one. You deserve a presence that brings peace. You deserve someone who chooses dialogue over distance, someone who understands that even a difficult conversation holds more life than an empty space. You are worthy of a person who does not use vanishing as a way to navigate difficulty, because the true measure of a bond is not found in the ease of a calm sea. It is found in how two people choose to navigate the waves together. We all seek to understand. We all desire a sense of completion, but at times, the quiet itself is the understanding we need. It reveals everything about a person's capacity to be present in a relationship. It shows you if they possess inner availability or if they are just passing through for the moments of ease. It shows you if they are mature enough to hold the weight of a true bond, or if they are only here for the lighter parts of the journey. You must learn to trust that the person who truly sees your worth will never allow you to feel as if you are unreachable. They will not recede when you need clarity. They will not vanish when presence is the most vital offering. Because when someone honors your essence, they communicate with clarity, consistency, and a gentle heart. When someone we care for enters a state of quiet, it is easy to believe they have reached a final decision. Perhaps their interest has faded. Perhaps their heart has closed. Yet, more often than not, this stillness is not the product of a clear, confident choice. It is a mirror to their own inner confusion, a reflection of a conflicted heart, or a deep-seated wish to avoid discomfort. Many people have not learned how to sit with difficult inner states. They were never shown how to give voice to what they feel, especially when it is tangled, unclear, or full of contradictions. So rather than flowing with it, rather than admitting they do not know how to name what is happening inside, they choose the path of quiet. It appears simpler. It postpones the need for honesty. It shifts the weight onto you, perhaps with the silent hope that you will make the first move, that you will ask, that you will sense, that you will mend what is broken. But this kind of quiet is not peace. It is a form of paralysis. It means they are caught, suspended between what they desire and what they fear, between what they know to be true and what they are not yet ready to face. Perhaps they feel a connection to you, but they also carry fear. Perhaps they want to be close, but they are deeply afraid of not being enough. Perhaps they feel the weight of not being able to show up as you deserve, and the silence becomes their sanctuary from having to face these truths. When a person is experiencing inner chaos, their outer presence reflects it. You receive inconsistent energy, a flow that comes and goes. One day they are fully present, the next they have retreated. You are left to wonder if the path changed, if you went astray, or if the connection was just a fleeting mirage. The confusion you experience is not just in your mind. It is a natural response to the storm they carry within, but refuse to name aloud. Then there is unresolved conflict. The quiet can be a symptom of something unsettled deep within. It may not even be rooted in your connection. It could be from old wounds that have not yet healed or fears they have yet to befriend. Perhaps they have felt the sting of betrayal before, and now that the connection feels real, their defenses are awakened. Instead of breathing through the discomfort, they pull back, not because their heart is cold, but because difficulty causes them to retreat into their shell. Sometimes this quiet is a form of protection, not meant to cause harm, but to shield themselves. They may think, if I say the wrong thing, I will disrupt the harmony, or if I reveal myself, I might face rejection. So, they choose distance as their shield. They hope the stillness will bring them time or clarity, or at the very least, a delay from a choice they feel unready to make. And finally, there is avoidance. This can be the most painful form of quiet, because it is not always born of inner turmoil. It is born from a desire for ease. They do not want to navigate a challenging conversation. They do not wish to cause you pain directly. They do not want to hold the responsibility for how they feel or for the ripple effects of their actions. So they choose to fade, to drift, to disconnect. This avoidance creates an illusion of being in control. It allows them to step away without confrontation, without feeling guilt, without being held in a space of accountability. But avoidance does not erase responsibility. It merely shifts its weight onto you. You are suddenly the one left holding the stillness. You are the one retracing steps, revisiting moments, trying to find meaning in their lack of presence. That awareness you feel, that is the spiritual toll of another's unwillingness to face the challenging, beautiful, honest parts of being human. The deep truth is that people often recede into quiet when they are not spiritually equipped to meet what is asked of them, when they lack the inner tools to speak their truth with clarity, when their learned response is to withdraw instead of engage. It is not always from a place of malice. It is often unconscious. It is learned behavior, old wounds, a lack of emotional maturity. But whatever the reason, the stillness itself has a voice. It says, I am not ready to walk this path with you. Or, I do not know how to give words to what is in my heart. Or, I hope this current simply carries itself away. It communicates that there is something unsettled within them, and instead of unpacking it with you, they have chosen to let it remain locked away. Sometimes the most resonant part of a relationship is not in the spoken words, but in the spaces of quiet. It exists in the long breaths between answers, the messages that go unacknowledged, the shared journeys that are never fully realized. It is found in the moments where a word of warmth was needed but was not offered. That lack of words, that empty space, is a communication in itself. We are taught to listen for words, to wait for someone to say how they feel. But a person's quiet often reveals more than their speech. Because when someone's care is true, you feel its presence without needing words. You do not have to seek reassurance or constantly ask where you stand. They show up. They reach out from their own center. They hold space for you. And when someone does not, when they leave you in a fog, when they avoid the path of vulnerability, it is not just a matter of being forgetful or occupied. It is a form of expression. It is telling you something they either lack the wisdom to say or the will to say aloud. Some people fear difficult conversations. They would rather remain quiet than speak the truth that they are moving away. Some are adrift in their own feelings, and rather than admitting this uncertainty, they retreat and let you experience the echo of their confusion. They believe they are sparing you by not being direct, when in reality, they create a deeper wound through their absence. People may assume that if they do not speak, they are not accountable for how you feel. This is a misunderstanding. The things left unspoken, the gaps in honesty, the missing explanations, the lack of closure, they leave you to carry the weight. You are left attempting to fill the void, making sense of a presence that lacks clarity. And this path is an exhausting one. Consider how someone meets you when there is tension in the space between you. Do they communicate? Do they lean in with an open heart? Or do they withdraw, hoping that time will dissolve what heartfelt words could have healed? When someone consistently sidesteps the vital conversations, when they do not express appreciation, when they never acknowledge the hurt their actions may have caused, that quiet reveals volumes about their spiritual readiness. It is not just about what they don't say, it's about what they are unwilling to hold space for. A person who stops saying, "I care for you," without explaining the shift in their heart is saying something profound. The person who pulls away energetically but pretends all is well is communicating clearly. The person who leaves sincere questions unanswered, who never follows through, who never asks about the state of your inner world. These are not oversights, they are patterns. They reveal comfort zones, fears, and priorities. They show you where you reside in the landscape of their life, even if they never say it directly. What people do not say often forces you into the role of interpreting their inner world, which is not your path to walk. You should not have to decipher another's presence to feel a sense of peace. You should not have to guess whether someone honors and values you. If it is not being spoken, if it is not being shown, that in itself is the answer you seek. When you begin to pay attention to the quiet spaces, the skipped apologies, the delayed responses, the lack of curiosity about your journey, you stop clinging to words that were once spoken but are no longer supported by presence. You realize that a person may not say, "My energy is no longer invested here," but you can feel it in the way they no longer show up. You realize that "I no longer choose this path" doesn't always come as a sentence. It comes as distance, disinterest, emotional withdrawal, and a lack of communication. This is not neutral. It is not harmless. It is not passive. It is a powerful form of emotional expression, and it is often more resonant than anything that could have been put into words. Because this kind of quiet does not leave space for clarity, it leaves space for doubt, and that doubt becomes the ground for mistrust, insecurity, and imbalance. You begin to learn the difference between someone who is naturally quiet and someone who is deliberately avoiding truth, between someone who is gentle with their words and someone who is withholding them. And that distinction holds all the wisdom, because not everything unspoken is a gentle pause. Quiet can seem potent. We see it as poetic, even profound. In stories and films, a long pause or a silent departure is often shown as deeply meaningful, mysterious, or heavy with emotion. We are taught to believe that when someone withdraws into stillness, it must be because their heart is too full for words, that they hold something noble, something deep, something worth waiting for. But in the flow of our actual lives, this kind of quiet is rarely so romantic. More often, it is a source of confusion, hurt, and unanswered questions. To see it through a lens of fantasy, rather than reality, can be one of the most painful detours on our journey. There is a human tendency to project our own feelings onto another's stillness. You may think, he is quiet because he is afraid of losing me, or she is distant because her feelings are so overwhelming. And perhaps, in some rare instances, this is true. But more often, the quiet is not a sign of depth, it is avoidance. It is emotional hesitation, a fear of responsibility, or simply a lack of devoted energy. And if you are not mindful, you will romanticize a form of neglect as a sign of hidden devotion. It is tempting to believe the stillness is full of meaning, because that belief gives you hope. Hope that this is not the end. Hope that they will return. Hope that the absence of words does not mean an absence of care. But when you fill another person's quiet with your own narrative, you begin building a version of the connection that exists only in your own heart and mind. You cease to see what is, and instead hold on to what you wish it could be. A shared silence can feel intimate, especially when you have experienced moments of deep connection with someone before. So when the quiet returns, it's easy to misread it as a continuation of that bond, as if a thread exists that words cannot break. But stillness is not always sacred. Sometimes it is just stillness. Sometimes it is simply avoidance disguised as mystery. And if you continue to treat it as something beautiful, you risk overlooking the very real lack of communication and energetic presence playing out before you. You have to be honest about what this quiet is costing your spirit. Are you pouring your life force into trying to understand someone who has no wish to be understood? Are you shrinking your own needs, quieting your own heart, hoping your patience will inspire them to finally speak? Are you holding on to someone who has already departed, simply because they did not announce their leaving with words? Because the quiet is not always a cliffhanger. It is often the final chapter. Not every story finds its end in words. Sometimes the exit is silent, no explanation, no sense of completion. And when that happens, it brings pain, but it also offers you a vital insight. Someone who does not honor your need for communication cannot be a partner in building a meaningful path together. You should not have to chase for clarity. You should not have to guess if you are still valued. You should not have to pretend that another's quiet is a grand, emotional gesture when it is, in truth, an emotional absence. To perceive this quiet wisely means asking grounded questions. Is this person still because they are processing, or because they have disengaged? Are they creating space out of care, or because their interest has faded and they do not wish to speak it? Are you holding on to their stillness because it makes you feel connected, or because you fear what their words might actually confirm? These are questions that demand clear, seeing honesty, not fantasy or wishful thinking. Because the truth is, silence is neutral until we give it a meaning. And when we give it the wrong meaning, we remain stuck in a cycle of waiting, wondering, and hoping. And the more we romanticize this, the harder it becomes to walk away. The quiet becomes the anchor that keeps you tethered, even when the ship has long since sailed. There is a gentle exhaustion that comes from being the one who always extends their energy first, the one who sends the morning greeting, the one who plans, who reminds, who follows the flow. In the beginning, it feels natural. You tell yourself you are just being thoughtful, that perhaps they are busy, or maybe they just aren't as expressive. You give them grace, and you continue to give. But with the passing of time, a pattern reveals itself. You initiate, they respond. You invest, they receive. You offer care, they allow it. And softly, you begin to feel the weight of a connection you are holding up on your own. True relationship is not about keeping score, but it is about the mutual flow of energy. When you are the only one initiating, it ceases to be a connection and becomes a pursuit. You begin to question if they are truly invested or simply content to be pursued, whether they cherish your presence or merely do not mind it, whether they would ever reach out if you first became still. This doubt becomes a quiet companion on your journey. You begin to feel like a visitor in their life, rather than a cherished presence within it. This one-sided flow can gently wear away at your sense of inner worth. It sends a subtle message that your needs are secondary, that your presence is not vital enough to inspire action from them. And while it may not be intentional, it creates a profound imbalance. You may begin to shrink yourself spiritually, measuring your words, your calls, your energy, because you do not want to appear as too much. You overthink your natural impulse to connect, because the energy you receive in return is often lukewarm, delayed, or inconsistent. There is a difference between someone who is simply less skilled at communication and someone who does not value the energy you offer. The first person is willing to meet you in the middle once a dialogue begins. The second will continue to allow you to carry the emotional weight because it serves them. It keeps the dynamic comfortable and unchallenged. They do not have to risk vulnerability. They do not have to invest their own energy. They simply have to respond just enough to keep you near. Initiation is a reflection of interest, not always in grand gestures, but in small, daily currents. If someone wants you to be a part of their world, you will not have to constantly remind them that you exist. They will make space for you. They will check in from their own impulse. They will remember what is important to you, not because you asked, but because they care enough to be truly present. Effort does not require reminders when someone is spiritually invested. Being the sole initiator also establishes a current. It teaches the other person that they do not need to make an effort, that you will always flow towards them. And that dynamic slowly builds resentment, not because you are keeping a tally, but because you are human. Every soul wishes to feel chosen. Every heart wants to feel wanted without needing to ask for attention or initiate every moment of connection. There comes a point in every one-sided connection where the quiet stops feeling mysterious and starts to feel loud. It begins as a space, an unanswered message, a shift in flow. But as time passes, that stillness begins to gather weight. It stretches, it lingers, and finally, it demands an answer, not from them, but from within you. Because when someone stops choosing you with their actions, their stillness becomes an invitation for you to finally choose your own well-being. When a person becomes quiet, you are left alone with your own mind. At first, this solitude can feel unbearable. You search for reasons, justifications, ways to understand. You wonder what shifted. You ask yourself if you did something wrong. You replay your words, your tone, your timing. You try to mend something you did not break, simply to regain a feeling of being grounded. Because if you can just make sense of the quiet, perhaps you won't feel so lost within it. But the truth is, not all silences are puzzles to be solved. Some are messengers meant to awaken you, to show you where your life force is flowing and how little is returning, to illuminate the imbalance you have been accepting in the name of hope. This quiet has a way of stripping away illusions. It gently forces you to stop listening to what you wish were true and to start observing what is. And in that observation, you will find your strength. Because the quiet does not just create distance, it can create profound clarity. It shows you who checks in when you too become quiet. It reveals who notices your absence without being prompted. It shows you who values your presence enough to reach back. And more often than not, the quiet reveals that you were the one filling all the empty spaces, holding all the weight, sustaining something that was not being mutually nourished. There is a unique peace that arises when you cease waiting for another to return and you begin the journey of returning to yourself. When you stop reaching out simply to feel seen, when you release the need to compensate for another's emotional absence. This peace is not loud. It does not arrive overnight. It comes slowly through small, mindful choices. It comes in realizing you do not need to explain your hurt when someone departs without care. It comes in deciding that your energy is precious and your heart is not disposable. It comes in remembering that your worth is an inner sun that does not dim when someone else fails or chooses not to see its light. Choosing yourself does not mean you do not care. It doesn't mean the connection was not real for you. It simply means you are finished trying to prove your value to someone who meets your need for clarity with stillness. It means the quiet they offered you becomes the sacred space you now use to heal, to grow, to remember what it feels like to be whole without another's half-hearted presence. You begin to draw back the energy you spent waiting. You begin to invest it in spaces that feel safe, in people who do not leave you guessing, in practices that build your inner temple instead of draining it. The quiet may feel like rejection, but it is often a form of redirection. It is the universe gently guiding you away from someone who was not choosing you, so you can finally begin choosing yourself without guilt. It is life clearing away the noise, so you can hear your own inner voice again. The voice that says, I deserve more than fragments. The one that says, I do not need to chase love to be worthy of it. The one that whispers the truths you may have ignored, in the hope that things might change if you just held on a little longer. And when you choose yourself in the face of this quiet, you reclaim your own story. You stop waiting for a sense of completion from someone who could not offer you simple communication. You stop trying to understand someone who offered no understanding in return. You untie your sense of peace from another person's presence. You allow their quiet to be what it is, a reflection of them, and not a measure of you. There is a profound truth that many resist when their heart is attached to another. If they truly cared, you would not be left in a state of wonder. You would not need to decipher mixed signals or replay conversations, searching for hidden currents in their words or their quiet. You would not need to ask others to help you interpret their tone, their pauses, their last message. When someone genuinely values your presence, you feel it consistently, clearly, and without confusion. It is a common human tendency to justify another's inconsistent energy. You tell yourself they are busy, overwhelmed, guarded, or simply not skilled with words. You wish to believe the best because care can create blind spots. It can soften your knowing. It can convince you to be patient when what your spirit truly needs is clarity. But genuine care does not hide. It does not waver. It does not leave you chasing after someone who gives you just enough presence to keep you hoping. When someone's care is authentic, they do not leave space for you to doubt it. They show up, not in perfection, but with clear intention. They make the effort. Even when they lack the perfect words, they find a way to let you know you are in their thoughts. They remember the small things, not because you ask them to, but because their care makes them present to your world.